welcome back. We will discuss what is happening in DeFi, what's going on. We will explore together why DeFi is a paradigm shift in the financial industry as we know it today. All right, guys, and welcome back to On-DeFi, where we talk with the most influential people of the DeFi space. And we're going to explore much deeper what decentralized finance can do to the world, how you can get started in decentralized finance, and what other entrepreneurs, developers are doing in the decentralized financial space. Today we have Tom at our channel, and Tom Howard, and Tom Howard. We met each other in Singapore, and we were at that point. He was shooting some DAI to me with his wallet, and then we were like spreading DAI all around the conference there in Singapore. It was pretty cool. And maybe introduce yourself a little bit, Tom. Who is Tom? Who's Tom Howard?
I'm. Thanks for having me here. I'm Tom Howard. First got my hands wet in crypto many years ago, back in I think it was 2012 or so. I was in college at the time and browsing this fun forum called Reddit, and discovered this magical internet money. And I was like, that seems like it's a good idea. So I downloaded some Bitcoin mining software and left it running for a night, and turned it back on the next day, and I had made like 2 cents. And so then I was like, okay, delete, waste of time.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, over the years, kind of kept coming back to it. And I would say like early 2017, I'd known about Ethereum for some time, and I was pretty skeptical. And then I saw that, the tokenization of assets in 2017 was like finally starting to pick up and take off. And so that's really when I did the dive. I got super interested then. I had just sold a software company that I built, and so started an angel investing firm from that. And we invested in a lot of projects in 2017 and 2018, including being some of the first investors in projects like Ren and Synthetics, SNX, and a bunch of other ones too. That was good fun. Met a lot of very interesting people in those times. Invested with a group of really bright folks, and I decided to go back to building when the bear market came around and investment opportunities dried up. And so that's when I built Mosendo with my co-founder Roscoe. So when I met you in Singapore, Mosendo is basically like a Revolut or a Venmo for DAI stablecoins. We built a bunch of really cool tech for usability and scalability. So it's based on state channels by the Connects team. And what we were doing at that conference in Singapore was we give you a QR code and you scan it, and then you instantly get that money right on your phone. I think that was a really cool experience. Since then, I've kind of gone more into the DAO space. So I'm a member of several different DAOs, investing DAOs, product building DAOs, grants giving DAOs. That's been a lot of fun. We also built up this community, DeFi Nation, over the past year and a half. And so we've been pretty deep into DeFi, and interviewed many of the prominent founders early on. Ones that were just starting out, we interviewed them, and now they're some of the most popular programs out there, such as Aave and the Lend token. It's kind of what I've been up to the past few years.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. And I really like the MetaCartel. I also logged into it, and that you have this looks like a role-playing thing that you have to pick a character like a mage or a warrior or like a paladin, and you pick that character and you enroll in this Telegram channel, and then a lot of new adventures actually arise. And this is I think something also really cool for people, like talented people that want to do something in the DeFi space. You really because you're so active in DAOs, the DeFi Nation DAO we're going to speak about in a bit, but also the MetaCartel is also basically a form of a DAO, I would say, when I look at it, right?
It's definitely a DAO, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a DAO, and it's like you filter out people to actually join this magical. What is that called? I'm really like, it was really cool when I saw it, and this is, I also think for the viewers interesting to, if they're interested, right? They can go to MetaCartel. If they have a good idea, they can just join the DAO and show the work that they're doing, and then participate.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess a little backstory on all of that. In the process of building Mosendo, we were working with the Connects team, Connects with an X at the end, and they were part of this DAO called the Moloch DAO, and so they were kind of some of the early people that were part of that DAO, and that really caught my eye at the time because the original idea of the DAO was super interesting, and then there was that whole hack and a bunch of drama, and basically there was like a DAO winter for a few years because nobody really wanted anything to do with DAOs anymore. And so the Moloch DAO was kind of the rebirth of that. They rewrote the code, made it much more safer and simpler, and launched the Moloch DAO. And so that was really cool. And they were basically the purpose of that DAO is to give grants to teams that were building Ethereum infrastructure. And the barrier to entry for that DAO was a bit high. So it was like, I think it was like 100 ETH was the minimum for joining. And so this one guy, Peter, he really wanted to join, and they wouldn't let him join because he didn't have 100 ETH to put up. So he was like, okay, I'm going to take this community that I've helped build called the MetaCartel community, which was basically an association of people building dApps on Ethereum, and I'm going to fork Moloch DAO. I'm going to make our own DAO. And so he did that, and we have the MetaCartel DAO, which is basically a grants giving DAO, and that gives grants to projects that are building applications focused on user experience and bringing new users into the space. So that's been pretty awesome. The barrier to entry for that is much lower. I think 10 ETH is the minimum for joining MetaCartel. And so we kind of have been supporting a lot of cool projects that are building on Ethereum through that. So what happened from there is it kind of evolved, and now there's Medicartel Ventures. So the main Medicartel DAO is a nonprofit, but the Medicartel Ventures DAO is a investment group, I guess. I don't know the exact terminology for it. The person who did all the legals on this would probably correct me, but it is an investment club of sorts.
Yes.
There's a legal entity behind it, but all the decisions are made on the DAO. And yeah, we basically invested in a bunch of different projects. One really cool example is Zapper Finance. So Zapper, when they first started, they got a grant from the MetaCartel grants DAO. And very recently, the MetaCartel Ventures has made an investment. And I think they're doing quite well with their fundraise as well. I'm not sure what's public and what's not, but yeah. So I think that's a really cool success story of like a project coming early on and getting kind of incubated by the MetaCartel, and then going on and doing a successful fundraise.
And it goes to show that like in a DAO structure like that, people saw the beauty of what Zapper was doing, and I must say they pivoted really nicely into like zapping into different investment products. So that's how they were like before, but now they really focus on this Zapper dashboard, which I use basically on a day by day basis almost. It's like the DeFi blockfolio, I would say. That's like, and you can make actually investments in it and all that. So it's really cool. And I also see a lot of future potential for Zapper, and I think that this is really cool. So also, so MetaCartel, that sounds really interesting. If people want to join MetaCartel, do they always have to pledge the 10 ETH? Because to be honest, I was I joined the Telegram, I picked my character, I did all the whole flow, which is amazing. So everybody that wants to do that, I thought, wow, this is really thought through. It felt like I was in like a magic game here, like a magic game where you sit down, Dungeons and Dragons game that you sit down and there's like a storyteller and you're like doing this game thing, right? So it's like feeling that feeling it gave me. It was a really cool, nice feeling that I got from it. Do you need to pay that but the 10 ETH barrier was still a little bit high to me because it was a little bit unclear of like what are actually the benefits of joining the MetaCartel DAO is basically that you can pitch to investors. So only if you're like really serious about pursuing a project you should join, or is it also just to network, or what is the purpose of the MetaCartel DAO, how it's constructed?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's kind of like it's kind of a social club in a sense. So for the MetaCartel DAO members, during conference time, we were going to like ETH Global and have like a hacker house that we set up, and
nice.
It became this kind of like Schelling point for turned on builders in the community to come together around. So yeah, there's kind of the social networking benefits from being in the DAO. But yeah, I mean, it's a grants giving DAO. So
yes.
Ultimately, you're giving some of your capital back to the ecosystem and helping young entrepreneurs and new projects get their start with a little bit of incubation capital. So we can't exactly give those shares out because you have a game theory problem, right, with no skin in the game. Because those shares, are voting shares, so you can actually vote what happens with the money that's in the treasury. And so, yeah, everybody needs to have skin in the game in order to be able to vote.
And how do you do this? Via Aragon, I presume, or another?
No. This is a Moloch. This is a fork of a Moloch DAO.
Oh yeah, fork of Moloch DAO. Yes, yeah, of course. That is very, very cool. And Zapper is a key like infrastructural layer, of course, of that. I also is there also like a POA token, for example? That like Bankless did this recently. So they created, if you subscribe to Bankless, you get this POA token, and they actually airdrop sometimes some tokens. So it's like it's small tokens, but it's kind of like a nice gimmick to have because then you can prove, look, I was already in the MetaCartel for this amount of time. Is that on the planning, or is maybe not?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when you pledge to the MetaCartel, it's all on the Ethereum blockchain, so your shares are there. So you can see it all right there on the Ethereum blockchain. But nice. Yeah, there's MetaCartel is like a relatively large group now, so there's all sorts of cool stuff happening. I don't know about most of it that's happening. Like people are it's a DAO, so people do stuff and things just happen. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I should maybe also continue my membership there. I was a little hold back by the 10 ETH, but I think after this call, I will definitely also pledge that. But also recently, you also started the DeFi Nation Signals group, which was also like a launch of a DSD token. And that was a very interesting experiment, I would say, because it shot up to like almost $2,000 for a membership, and then it gradually got down to a more normalized price. What did you think about this experience, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, it got much more popular than I expected. So some of the team that built kind of the early infrastructure for the MetaCartel DAO, like the actual technology, they've been working on what they call a DAO ops. So building tools for DAOs to collaborate and coordinate. And so they built this one tool that was essentially, you get access, it's token permissioned chat room, right? You get access to the chat room if you have the tokens. And so I thought, that would be kind of cool to do something like that. Andrew Lee had just launched it with Karma DAO. And that was pretty successful. And, a bunch of people that I know are in there, and it was a pretty cool group and a pretty cool project. And I was thinking, hey, I think we could probably do something similar with the DeFi Nation community.
What's it called? Karma DAO?
Karma.
Okay.
Karma.
Oh, Karma DAO. Okay.
Yeah, like good karma.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I've just been having a lot of people messaging me about different DeFi things, questions about DeFi. And I figured, I really wanted to put everyone into a group where, I can answer all the questions in one place instead of answering the same questions across, 20 different chats.
Yes.
And so I was like, all right, well, why don't I make it like a tokenized access group? It'll be a little bit more advanced. There's things that, I don't share in the public DeFi Nation groups because they're, a little bit more risky. They're not beginner friendly. Particularly if you're looking at, investments in risky tokens or new projects, then like, you need to be a little bit more aware of the risks in those cases. So
yeah,
I was like, it'd be really cool to create a place where like, I don't really have to hold back. And it can be for advanced users and
yes,
create a token around that. So we did that. We released the DSD token with 50,000 tokens. You need 100 tokens to join the group. And so this is on Telegram and on Discord. And so that means there's a 500 member limit. And yeah, it did really well. I put it on Uniswap, and I was providing liquidity on Uniswap, and I was going to add more liquidity, more tokens to Uniswap, but then the price went up so fast that I couldn't add it in time. So yeah, ended up releasing like less tokens than I expected, but I think it worked out because now we have about 120 people in the group. And like the core of the community is really coming together. We've been discussing a lot of really cool projects in there, and yeah, I think it's going pretty well. Like, yeah, I don't know. You're a member in there, so
yeah.
I think you found it quite useful. Yeah.
Yes, I find it really useful. So I joined the group as well, and what I especially was I found really cool was as you said, there was this DAO winter. So I looked at Aragon, at Augur, and like everything. But now suddenly these mechanisms becoming more mature. So this to join the DeFi Nation Discord group or Telegram, you actually have this bot that you need to talk to. And then if you actually prove on-chain that you have these tokens to get into, that was really cool. And also what I find really useful is the yield farming tips that are coming there. And there is like special channels where in the beginning, you saw also the group evolving from like a Telegram, like a lot of like messages constantly about projects and stuff like that. There was less spammy because people in there are obviously like more serious. So it was really nice. So I didn't have to turn off the notifications because actually all the information in there was useful. And now on the Discord channel, it's much more organized. So there's like per like interesting tokens, there's like a special channel, and the yield farming techniques are quite interesting. And there's also this YOLO channel where we're sharing like some interesting techniques. For example, the one token, which is really interesting in my opinion, but the liquidity is very low. So it's like if you would mention this to like the Melon One token from this really cool company, but for some reason their liquidity is low. If you would mention this in a more public group, the people would maybe jump into it, not understanding that they would pump the price so much, right? Yep. So this is quite nice. And I also find the Alex yield round that you shared was also interesting. So I was following Alex Coin for a while actually. And I supported him as well with his yield round a little bit. But of course, what is a problem right now, you hear this by some people, they're saying we need to embrace, that there is scams. We need to understand this and just educate ourselves and grow into like a little bit of the next level on that, right?
Yep.
What do you think about that? Do we need to grow as an industry, or can we like we need to grow as an industry, or can we do we need to shield people off? Because that was in the beginning, and that's also what regulators say, of course. In my opinion, I think we can all wear big boy pants, as I will say that, but we are all mature adults, right? So I think yeah, we should just educate.
Define we. Define we.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, a lot of this stuff is super new and super risky, and you know, you might put money into a project and then, you know, realize that the team put the code together within a few weeks and they didn't think about some edge cases, and then next thing you know, like it's all been hacked, right? And so for people who don't understand the nuances of the technology, that's not a good experience for them, right? They're going to come in, and if they have a problem, they're going to say, oh, DeFi is a scam, and they're going to leave and they're never going to come back. And so I do think we need to be very careful about the growth of the industry and like what products we direct people to. And, you know, longer standing products that have been around for a long time and their code is well tested are more suitable for, you know, audiences that haven't been digging into the nuances of smart contract security and economic security. And so for them, like, you know, interacting with a MakerDAO or Compound or something like that is more appropriate, I think. Versus like, you know, something like Yiffy or Wifey, you know, that's much newer. You know, Andre, who built it, is a very bright guy, but you know, it's not a well-funded team that has a lot of resources for security. So that's like a much riskier kind of proposition.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think we need to be careful about the way that the industry grows. I was, you know, when I first kind of got into it, I was like, oh, this is, it's all working, it's ready, like let's go take it to everyone right now. And like as I spend more time in it, I'm just kind of like, all right, let's test things out with the people who actually understand the risk first, and kind of establish that that kind of track record of quality and security. And over time, like we'll get it to the masses and we'll get it scaled up and we'll make it approachable. And another big problem is that the UX is just terrible. Like MetaMask is how you interact with pretty much everything in the DeFi ecosystem. And like, you know, that I consider that a developer tool. That is not a user-friendly tool. And so we need better ways of, you know, allowing like the regular person to interact with DeFi. And Zapper is like one example of you know, a team that's working on doing that. But yeah, I think there's still a bunch of work to be done to really go mainstream with this. But yeah, it'll happen. It just takes some time.
Yeah, and Anchorpolis is also doing a similar thing. They built this decentralized bank. Yep. So it's really what I really like seeing in the DeFi space is like it moves so fast. So there's already like Zapper is doing it, but there's already, I think, 3 other projects are trying to do a similar thing. But I think also personally that Zapper is way ahead at this point. But nevertheless, it's moving really, really fast. But you're saying that we have to wait until we bring it to the masses, right? I would say, yeah, I do agree with that, but I also think that like then it goes to the question like, what is DeFi? I think DeFi is for us to defend our own financial sovereignty and to empower ourselves against the corrupt governments that are now just inflating the money supply like crazy. If you use inflation calculations, there's an inflation of 20% in the US. That's that's like very weird to me, and I think people need to empower themselves more and should be smart enough to use DeFi to a certain extent. I think there is a big layer of the population that can learn MetaMask, that can learn how to use even Curve. For me, but I have a developer background. For me, Curve, I love the Curve interface, for example. I really like I like it, right? But of course, not everybody would find this clear or understandable. When do you think we're ready then for the masses, or what do we need to do to be ready for the masses?
I don't think it's like a I don't think it's like a binary event. Like I don't think it's just like one day we're just like, okay, now we're ready. I think people just kind of self-select into it. You know, I wouldn't be going and going to my grandmother and being like, hey, you know, you should put your savings into Curve. Curve just came out this year. It's not even 1 year old. So like, you know, one of the kind of like biggest tests of security is like, how long has it been around? Yes. And so, you know, I think people kind of self-select into it. Like, you know, I would say that there shouldn't be teams that are promoting very risky new products to pensioners, but like, you know, people that discover something like Curve or you know, newer projects like Wifey or Yiffy, like they kind of are self-selecting in their knowledge and their risk-taking willingness to kind of get there. So I think it just naturally evolves itself there over time.
Yeah, I agree. And what the analogy that I really like about Bankers actually came up with this formula, and they call it time value locked. So how do you actually calculate I will link this in the description below. How do you actually calculate the security of a protocol, and they have a formula for time value locked. And I think that's indeed true. It's not a linear process. Do you think we will see what will come first, the retail or the big money? Right now, I'm seeing actually a lot of more like people with more sophisticated investors are like, hey, wait a minute. Here we have the traditional financial market and my money is stuck and it's not really moving anywhere. And I basically have to pay to store it on a bank. And there is this new DeFi thing here. And I can either park my money there and get a little bit of an interest on my capital and potentially invest in some upcoming product. Do you see either retail or like sophisticated investors coming to DeFi?
So we'll have to break out what sophisticated investor means. I think there's the sophisticated individual who understands these things, and they're the first adopters. And then I think retail is after them. And you know, an institutional investor, they legally cannot participate in this. Like the regulations around what fund managers can do in the traditional space just completely blocks them out of this market. So for instance, there's the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. You know about that?
Yes, Grayscale. Yes, I'm familiar with Grayscale. Yeah.
And so it's like it's basically just a way to hold Bitcoin. And that trades at a massive premium, like 5 to 10x the price of Bitcoin. And the reason for that is that they're a fully regulated entity. And that is actually the only way that a lot of institutional investors can participate in Bitcoin, because they, you know, because of the regulatory paradigm, they're legally not allowed to actually hold Bitcoin. And so for the bigger institutions that come into this, and the bigger fund managers, the more regulated ones, they're not going to be able to come in this. Like they need to see 10-year track records before this is really, you know, possible for them to even get the regulations changed. So it's going to be a while for them. But, you know, DeFi right now is all on Ethereum, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be on Ethereum. And so I think there's some opportunity for, like, you know, the Goldman Sachs of the world to create their own blockchains and have, you know, their own style of DeFi, which is like a, you know, slightly more transparent or open, but private and permission blockchain. And I think they'll create their own, you know, DeFi type of products over there, and that's where we'll see institutional adoption first. But yeah, right now, like, I think, you know, sophisticated individuals, unregulated funds, or ones that have a mandate for, you know, very risky investments, and retail are going to be the main participants in this. And really, like, it's most beneficial to retail because it, you know, it's cutting out the middleman. You know, the fund manager doesn't necessarily want you know, these kind of like lending protocols to happen, because now where do they get their cut? You know, so you know, really cool, really interesting comparison is, like, if you put your money in a bank, they're going to take all of your money, they're going to lend it to somebody else, they're going to earn 10% on your money, and they're going to give you a fraction of a percent, like 0.01% interest on your money. If you take your money and you put it in a compound, then you just get the 10% yourself. And so, you know, it's cutting out the middleman in that way. Like the lending interest goes directly to you instead of to the bank. Yeah,
and I think that's, in my opinion, then the the sophisticated individuals, they come in, and maybe there's they have some smart money behind them. That's the first wave that we're actually seeing, although we're seeing that right now. And then the retail is now slowly jumping onto it. And that is, of course, good. The question is like, how long, how will this evolve itself? I'm really interested to see that. But before I will go in that side, it's a bit more regulatory side, but like, what do you see? How do you see, because you said something like multiple chains of value, right? How do you see this? Do you see a value universe with different blockchains, or you think there can be only one blockchain? How do you see this in front of you?
I think there can be different blockchains for sure. I mean, I think Bitcoin will always be around, and like,
yes,
I think Bitcoin is a single purpose chain, and it's to be Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is an asset, much very similar to the way that gold is an asset, right? Versus like the value proposition of Ethereum is kind of having these programmable financial contracts. And so it's kind of like this primary layer for settlement, I think. And then I think we're going to have a bunch of side chains and in various forms that where basically Ethereum is like the main settlement layer, where like, where the big transactions get settled. And then you have like, different side chains or scalability chains where smaller transactions are happening. And then at the end of the day, I think most of them will come back to Ethereum, but you never know, like, if the US Fed comes out with their own blockchain and all the banks and everyone has to do business on there, then that might be where everything happens. I mean, I think there's always going to be a place for Ethereum and people that want to opt out of that system, but
exactly. I see a value chain happening. I really like this layered approach, right? Like, I think there's multiple illustrations of this where you see the money Legos, and I saw also in your interviews or in your work, I think you also believe that, right? So this is money Legos, and I think basically every blockchain can have this, but it is which blockchain offers like the highest level of zero trust, right? Like if you do this, for example, on the Tron blockchain, it's just a joke, in my opinion, because there's no there's probably front running a lot, or there's other things going on. If on Ethereum there's this zero trust layer that they cannot go back, and at Ethereum Classic, for example, we saw there's this hacks going on at the moment, the 51% attacks, and then if you have DeFi on a protocol like that, it will completely collapse, in my opinion, right? So there is like I think we will see these money Legos on every blockchain that is like mature enough to actually handle an infrastructure like that. And in my opinion, I think on Tron, for example, they're trying to do that. They're just forking Uniswap, forking different protocols. Well, like I don't understand how the volume is also still very low, but at some point that will collapse, I think, because it's quite sophisticated. Like, well, it's actually pretty elegant and simple in its basis, but everything around these technologies are quite complex, right? Do you think we will see like a lot of hacks, for example, maybe the Waves blockchain or the Tron blockchain, where maybe some things will like collapse at some point, or what do you think?
Well, Tron is just a meme chain, so I don't think meme chains can die. I don't think there's going to be any real value. Like, I don't think people are going to put like real value in there and do business on there. But I'm sure that there's people that control the Tron blockchain and will continue that meme, just as the Dogecoin has lived for a long time as well, right? So I mean, it's and credit to Justin Sun. So Justin Sun was forking DeFi before anybody else was forking DeFi. Justin Sun was copying DeFi projects over a year ago and putting them on the Tron blockchain. And now every blockchain is trying to do that. And so credit to Justin Sun for being the first one to copy paste.
Yes. Credit to Justin. I know you can say what you want about the guy, but he's moving fast, man. Like he's moving fast.
He certainly recognized the trends and like got in front of it. And do I think people are going to use the Tron blockchain? No, I don't think so. But
it's not the zero trust layer.
I think people will have fun with the meme for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's also already the Dodge DeFi chain. I saw something popping up, forgot the name of it, but
Yeah.
that's what we get. We get these narratives, and they constantly repeat themselves, I think. And yeah, I think that's also a beautiful thing, and something we need to really watch out for moving forward.
I think like a much better example is like Project Serum, which just came out. From FTX, right? And so they're building a DEX on Solana, and Solana is supposed to be like a much more scalable blockchain, higher TPS. And so the FTX team is building an order book DEX on Solana, and that's super interesting because one of the biggest issues with DEXs is the performance issue. Professional traders want to be able to trade on the nanosecond timescale, and you just can't do that on Ethereum when blocks are 10 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's super interesting, and I think what is basically going to happen there is like Solana will be like the place where people go to like to do their exchange, their trading, right?
Yes.
But it's going to be ETH assets, so like you're going to have ETH assets coming and bridging to the Solana blockchain just for the trading. Just for like the more professional trading experience on Solana. But like at the end of the day, then ETH is still the settlement layer for all of this. So I think that's kind of how it's going to play out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I'm also very excited about the Solana project. I was also like reading into it, doing some research, and actually throughout the DeFi Nation Signals group, I actually got alerted by the airdrop that is going on there. We will link that in the description below. And I think it's a very interesting project indeed. What I'm like really curious about what's going to happen. A friend of mine is a lawyer, and he says to me, Amadeo, what you're doing is criminal. Literally, he said literally. So, and he's been saying this for years already. But I like, what do you mean? He said like, yeah, you don't have a money transmission license. He's really
he doesn't understand it.
He doesn't understand it that much, but he actually he understands proof of work quite well, actually, to be honest. So he's quite a young guy as well, and I'm just okay. And he's from the Bitcoin SV chain, and he's like really on that. I'm completely blockchain agnostic, and I really try always to understand what is your point and what is their point, right? And he says there's a big problem, and it's called the traveler's rules, right? So if you send money to like from a VASP to a VASP, but if you send money from individual to individual, it's fine. But if there's VASP to VASP, there needs to be KYC and all this, right? And that's apparently coming up soon. But I think it's going to take years until that's going to be crystallized, because there's now already 10 implementation of this rule. There's even like a Bitcoin improvement protocol to make Bitcoin ready for this. And they want to KYC all miners and all that, right? So miners get certificates. And I don't think we will move in a space like that, but I do think as a DeFi builder, how do you look into this? Like if you invest in a project, like regulatory wise, or this, like, because now it's really a big gray area, but how do we handle, how can we make sure that if the regulators come, because someday they will come, they were like, okay, this is getting pretty big. What can we do to build in that space? Or do we need to keep on going, keep on building, that we grow bigger and bigger and bigger so that they cannot really control us? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think the true test of decentralization is like whether or not it's actually possible to regulate. So for instance, Bitcoin, you can't regulate it. Like people can ban it, they can do whatever they can make any rules they want about Bitcoin, but at the end of the day, they can't actually stop. There is nobody to stop. There is no way to shut down Bitcoin, right? And so I think that's really the true test of decentralization, is that it actually doesn't even need regulation because it's fully decentralized, right? Yes. And the role of the regulator is not to dictate how innovation happens. It's actually to follow innovation and kind of put up guardrails as new things are discovered. And so, yeah, I mean, some regulators can try to regulate a smart contract, but there's the smart contract is designed so that nobody can control it. So they're going to have a very hard time really enforcing anything like that. And eventually, as more and more people use it, they're going to have to, realize how to actually work with it and adjust the regulations will change. It will take time, but the regulations will change to follow innovation and not the other way around.
Yeah, I agree.
And so the travel rule is an interesting one because it governs, governs money transmission between financial institutions. But the thing is, there are no financial institutions in DeFi. And so I'm not sure how you would apply that rule to anything in DeFi.
Yeah, we're technology companies. We're not financial institutions. Yeah, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you read the CF or FinCEN put out some guidelines around this as well, around different ways that they perceive whether or not an entity should be considered a money transmission business.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some vagaries around developers of smart contracts that are earning fees directly to themselves. And even this is like still gray area, but if you've deployed a smart contract and it takes fees for a money transmission activity and the fees go directly to you, then it seems somewhat likely that you'd be a money transmitter. But like Uniswap doesn't do that. So, Hayden developed Uniswap and he deployed the smart contract out there. He doesn't control it. He does not earn any fees from it. And, there's nobody that is actually transmitting money. It's all a peer-to-peer activity, and peer-to-peer activity is not money transmission. So I think that there's, a combination of just complete misunderstanding of how the technology works and a bit of like not understanding that it's completely unenforceable. Even if like they were to try to do something there.
Yeah, and I think the traveler rule could be implemented in much better ways. And unfortunately, people that are regulating already for like 35 years, they kind of thought the internet was a scam probably as well. Yeah. And they're now seeing Bitcoin and they're regulating it the same way they've been regulating stuff for the last years. So it's, I think, in a wrong direction, and I think it will do more harm than good, in my opinion. But this is still far away, so I think we just need to keep on building and keep on working hard. What would you say to somebody that's like starting out and somebody that's now like a new builder? What is the best way for them to get started, in your opinion?
Best way to get started, go to hackathons. Probably shouldn't go to them in person anymore because of COVID. But there's a bunch of online hackathons. So there's a bunch of online hackathons, there's a bunch of online communities. That's probably the best way to get started, is just to dig in there and start learning.
Nice. So guys, let's go all to hackathons. If you could make a guess, we now have 4.2 billion market cap in DeFi, on DeFi.
Yep.
And there is just a betting market opened up actually on Aragon version 2, where you can make a bet on what is the market cap going to be of DeFi. What would you guess at the end of 2000?
What time frame?
Yeah, so at the end of 2020. So there's a pretty
2020?
short. Yeah, it's 2021, January 1, 2021.
What are we at? 4.2 billion?
Yes.
16 billion.
16 billion. Nice. I love that energy. And that's going to be exponential, right? So then we go to 2020. Yeah. I just placed a bet for
doubling every quarter.
Yeah, I placed a bet on the Aragon. So I also linked that in below, because I will link an article, like a homework, I call it, like, like assignments for the DeFi, like getting more familiar with DeFi. And then you can place an Aragon bet on like what is the market cap, and you can actually make money with that. I betted actually 14 billion, so it's pretty close. And right now it's I still have to place my bet though, so I didn't place the bet yet because the gas fees yesterday were just too high. So this is also a tip: if you go in the morning around this time, actually the gas fees are lower. Like, and
morning and what time zone though?
morning and Europe time zone. So Central European
it.
time in the morning. Then it's for some reason it's a little bit better. And then in the evening it becomes crazily high for some reason. So let's see.
Because the Americans are waking up.
Yeah, and if you could pick because you're signaling a lot of really cool projects in DeFi Nation. If you maybe readers, it's not financial advice, but just like interesting projects that you're personally interested in at this moment. If you have to pick 3 projects, what would it be?
Yeah, and I just want to clarify from what I said earlier, like none of that is legal advice either. I'm not a lawyer, and so nothing here is also financial advice. Yes. So 3 projects. Let's see. I'm pretty excited for the BZX relaunch that's coming later this month. Yes. And they're going to have some pretty cool liquidity mining incentives. Man, only 3?
Yeah, there's so much, right? Get your balancing pools ready for the BZX relaunch, right? Like,
oh man, yeah.
It's so
I mean, there's a lot of things I'm excited about. There's so on the topic of like bringing DeFi to the masses. Yes. There's a new project coming out very soon called Grow Usd, and it's focused on basically helping people to deposit their stablecoin, their USD or whatever it is, and just earn interest, whatever the best interest rates are on the market. And it's very, very retail focused, very easy, simple UX.
Like Dharma or like?
Kind of. But yeah, it's there's like a referral marketing component to it as well. That's all completely decentralized. And so there's it's the first product from Sync DAO, which is coming up soon. And let's see what else. I mean, there's some pretty interesting stuff happening with UMA. We built the usynth.xyz interface to build on UMA, and we're basically turning that into like a product building DAO. And so we're trying to decentralize the product building process. Allow people to come in and earn DAO shares for contributing to different features in the interface. Nice. And yeah, I mean, I can go on, but you said only 3.
Only 3, because we already are talking quite some time. I heard your agenda popping up there as well. So. There's so much interesting projects going on. So actually, let's invite everybody that wants to. Like, I'm also part of the DeFi Nation Signal group. Like, everybody that wants to join, there's a process to joining. I will link that in the description below, and I will also link all the projects in the description below. And I think this evolution of like DAOs, and as you said, like, we're building this Unicent, and then we're building a DAO around that for people to actually contribute code and products and ideas. And from that, you can actually earn money. So this is like, it's democratizing finance, it's democratizing building. It's basically it gives the builders and the idea just like a completely open space, just like the internet did. Like when you build a website, let's build like a lot of different cool websites. And we can all come up with these ideas. And there's actually, now in all these protocols, all these DAOs are like getting more and more funded. So there's actually more and more incentives to quit your full-time job and just scout DAOs and contribute code or knowledge, whatever. Yeah. Like, you can be a lawyer, you can be a business developer, you can be a software developer, of course, or a designer, or, this super interesting. All right. So yeah, Tom, like it's been a super cool interview. Is there something you want to say to the new builders and the new people that are watching, or the existing people that are watching, before we close the interview?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's taking a build fast approach, like move fast and break things. I think it's great for a startup, but we also need to remember that in this space, it's real money that we're messing with here, and so we need to take a little bit of a step back and make sure that when we put something out there, people aren't going to lose their money. So try to find the right balance of building fast, but also maintaining the security.
Yeah, we didn't step on that much because the positives and negative sides, but I think most people watching the channel already know these sides. And I think what you're saying as well here, what we really need, we need to build fast rating, but watch out, it's money. Do you also agree that we need more standardization, right? Like, or standardized protocols, standardized procedures of deploying a financial application, for example?
I think all those things exist. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of great teams working in the security space, and I think I think that's all there. If you're a builder, then you know where to find it.
Yes, but it exists, but there's also a lot of different places. I think it's there. You're saying, yeah, it's there, but like when you start looking, there's this new thing, that new thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just how software development works.
Yeah, there's
true. always something new built and discovered, and it's better in some ways, and there's trade-offs, and yeah. I mean, if you talk with any auditor, there's a bunch of there's some pretty standardized practices these days. I think every builder has to have balance this trade-off of time to market and security, or not even security, but time to market and carefulness.
Yes.
And if you're too careful, then you're going to run out of money before you launch, and then your startup's going to die, right? And so there's it's just perfection. You can spend forever on perfection. You'll never be 100% perfect. And I think with a normal startup, it's you aim for a much lower bar of perfection, and you just get it out there and iterate. I think when you're building smart contracts, you need to have take it up a notch or two. We can never be perfect, but have to move at a bit of a slower pace than a normal startup.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right, man. Tom, thank you super much for all your wisdom and wise words, and I hope we will interact more and more on the DeFi Nation Signal group. We will talk about a lot of interesting new combinations or building blocks in DeFi, and I look forward to an explosive coming months actually, and coming year. I'm very bullish as well on the market right now. I position myself also good in the DeFi space, and I think right now I'm still dollar cost averaging in some protocols. I'm still a little bit careful with some things, but I'm also having this really big experimental side of things, and I think it's still it is an experiment, but it's getting more and more real. But what we still need more builders, because let's say the space doesn't evolve. If the space stays where it is today, then it's not really going to work. We need more real life use cases. We need real world assets on the blockchain. We need to bridge the CeFi DeFi gaps, and we need to keep on innovating. If we do this, then DeFi will become indeed much bigger even than the 16 billion or the 14 billion that we just mentioned. I think we can go to a trillion or even more locked up in DeFi in the future.
And to build on that, I think you mentioned that people in your audience are currently they're programmers or computer science students or something like that, right?
Yeah.
What's happening here is an entirely new form of financial engineering. And so whether Ethereum is the place where DeFi is happening, or the Goldman Sachs chain is where DeFi is happening, programmable financial contracts are here to stay.
Yes.
And having the skills to actually build and code these kind of financial contracts, it's going to not only grow in demand, it's going to be in massive demand for probably decades, because the ability to actually do something like this is in very, very short supply right now. And when you look at the total financial markets, this is something, it may not happen next year, but it'll happen in the next 10 to 20 years, where the entire financial system will be built on this, because it is 10 times better, or even more than 10 times better. And so it's inevitable. And so, I think dedicating to learning the skills right now will set you up for a lot of success in the future.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree with that as well. And like what is important and why I think it's important also to early on, like similar to, because you're also very early on in crypto, to not lose our, to learn and to move forward, but not lose our grassroots feeling like why we're doing this, right? I think DeFi is a protocol for like hyper financial inclusion, hyper destructions of middlemen, and we need to stay true also to that goal. And like, yes, Goldman Sachs chain and all that, okay, interesting, but I hope that is not going to happen. I hope we can stay more decentralized. I think you completely agree with that, right? We need to stay more decentralized, and if more centralized versions happen, very interesting still. But let's still try to inject it with the grassroots culture that we have here, and let's keep that alive. And watch out for yield seeking. I find it sometimes a bit. It's not that much in the DeFi Nation Signal group. People are more like, really, oh, what is this? What is this doing? Interesting mechanics, experiments.
Yep.
If I go to some other channels, it's more like YOLO. I put in all my money at 10x Lamborghini 2017 all over again. That's something we need to watch out for.
Yeah, and I've you and I have been through the entire bear market cycle. I've noticed who's been around, who's actually here for the mission and not just for the YOLO money. And you were there, I was there, and there's a couple of others. So we know who each other are, and I think there's something to that.
Yeah, there's something to that indeed, and we need to make sure that that we also not lose ourselves when they're like, I mean, in 2017 with all that funds that were coming in and stuff, it's challenging. It's an interesting developments, right?
Yeah.
But we all need to stay grounded and for my opinion, in the grassroots. And I really I hope also to get Amir Taki on the show soon. He's really like maybe a little bit too extremist in some points, I think. But I think you know him as well, right?
I don't.
Oh, okay. So he's the CTO for, like, he was working with Vitalik in the beginning, and he was actually in Bitcoin Magazine with Vitalik, and he was offered the CTO position for Ethereum, but he declined and then went to Syria to fight in the war. And to it's quite an extreme story. And I hope to have it on that. That's like maybe another. And he is also of the belief that like similar with the DAO, the anti-Ampleforth token. He is of the belief of the dark tech renaissance, and he's like making a group of hackers and educating a group of hackers in Barcelona to to actually make bonds. Instead of creating DeFi products for the traditional world, you can also reverse that and create destruction bonds with these decentralized finance. So I would not agree with his states on that completely, but I think these weapons, these financial weapons that we can actually construct, are also quite dangerous. But we need to understand that when the state is going to attack us, because maybe they will, I don't know, that we also need to be ready to maybe fire back. What do you think about that?
You're talking about defending against state attacks on DeFi? Yeah,
defending, like if they're gonna enforce the travel rules, if they're gonna say, if you're not custodial wallets, you have to do this and that, then maybe to stay to our grassroots, to stay true to like, hey, it's financial sovereignty. It's not like, it's basically not your, it's not your business, right? Well, it's the other spectrum with Amir Taki there, but I will definitely go to interview him. But it's
that sounds quite interesting. I just think that if this is all like unstoppable technology, so I'm not really too worried about it. I just kind of, the way I see it is like it'll permeate more and more over time, and then it'll just be normal eventually, just like the internet and computing. Kind of just now now everything runs on the internet and everything runs on computers, and it just happens over time.
What I would like to do is, like in the Philippines, I was there before, and I constructed a company there, and it's for me very hard to see now that there's like like now there's a recession, minus 12% economic growth expected. It's really insane, and it really hurts me to see that, because there's some beautiful people there. And in my opinion, it's not a political channel, it's not a political voice, but I would like to create something that if people can actually subscribe, if the a recession happens in their country, they can actually profit from that, like a reverse kind of like bond that they, when the recession hits a country like that, or the money printing goes brr, you know, in the country, that you airdrop money to the population, something like that, right? Because it's a small country. It's a big country. It's a big country, but the capital they have is really small. I think the stock exchange in the Philippines already is like crypto is like 10 times that, or even much more. It's quite interesting what's going to happen then.
That is why, like, you know, programs like the IMF kind of came about. But yeah, it's a very difficult problem to solve, especially when, you know, Philippines is actually doing better compared to a lot of other countries right now, especially the US. So yeah, it's definitely a hard time. No easy answers to that.
No easy answers. Let's keep on building and see if we potentially can mean something big for the world there as well. And I think there's a potential for us to mean something bigger than we think we can mean to the world. But I think that needs to evolve naturally. If that would happen, that will happen without any aggression, in my opinion, or any negative feelings. It's just, we're going to do it in a different way. We're going to do it in a more positive way. And we're going to shed light on maybe some dark corners of the financial, centralized financial markets that are happening right now, I would say, right?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Cool.
Well, hey, I got to run.
Yeah, me too, man. Okay, it was a pleasure talking to you, Tom. And yeah, all your descriptions are in the links in below. I will link your Twitter, your LinkedIn, and everything. And cool. I hope to talk to you more on the DeFi Signal DAO, and speak to you again soon, man. It was nice catching.
All right.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers, man. Bye-bye.